This material is made available to you by or on behalf of the University of Melbourne under Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. It may be subject to copyright. For more information, visit the University Copyright website.
The following program is a production of the Harvard Business School Management Productions. The power of ideas at work.
This is the second program in a series entitled Measuring Corporate Performance. In the North Sea off Aberdeen, Scotland, a rockwater ship sends divers to the seabed to connect an undersea oil field to a production rig. Rockwater is a $200 million undersea construction company operating in a variety of locations and cultures around the world. Recently formed by the merger of several international companies, Rockwater faced a serious challenge: to communicate direction to a highly diverse body of employees.
As diligently as we were at communicating the mission, it simply wasn't addressing to the 1,100 employees that we had, the 17 different nationalities, a sense of direction.
In the hills of North Carolina, a division of FMC produces dozens of products from lithium ore. It is one of 27 divisions producing a great variety of products and materials for the FMC Corporation. Headquartered in Chicago, the company concentrated for years on producing superior return on investment. But concerned about its ability to sustain this performance, FMC management decided that the company must grow faster.
FMC has, for a large number of years, been a top performer in terms of the return on investment of the corporation. We were trying to understand how we could maintain that performance and grow the corporation at a faster clip than we had historically done.
In both of these companies, we see management striving to implement strategies that will create future value. Building this future value and understanding the trade-offs involved in achieving this goal are addressed by a management technique called the balanced scorecard. Robert Kaplan is Arthur Lowes Dickinson Professor of Accounting at Harvard Business School. He is a leading authority on measurement systems that help managers lead their organizations to greater profitability and value.
The primary goal of senior executives is to create long-term value for their organization. They need to be able to operationalize what their strategy is, to see what they have to do today in order to create that long-term value. Today's financial performance is only one of those indicators.
In developing a balanced scorecard, corporate strategy is first converted to specific objectives in 4 key areas. One of these areas is financial, but financial measures alone are not enough.
The financial measures of the most recent period's performance will tell you something about how well the company operated during that period, but there could be processes that they developed during that period for customers and for new products and for new capabilities that will create long-term value that have yet to show up on the financial statements. And conversely, some organizations may have cut back on some of those investments for long-term capabilities. In the short run, this will make their current financial performance look better. But in the process of making those financial statements look better, they have mortgaged their future.
Because the balanced scorecard focuses on both current and future performance, it examines the business from 4 perspectives: The financial perspective contains those objectives that reflect shareholder expectations. For example, return on investments or growth in profits. The customer perspective contains objectives for meeting customer expectations. Measurements like market share and on-time delivery. The internal perspective focuses on companies' internal processes to see which ones they must excel at to create future financial value and keep customers satisfied. Examples might include waste control, cycle time, or cost management. The innovation and learning perspective focuses on activities required for future success. Developing new products and exploring employee suggestions would be examples.
This is how we're trying to communicate this idea that
Professor Robert Kaplan and management consultant David Norton worked together on a year-long project with 12 companies. From that project came the balanced scorecard.
A lot of people come up now and they've read the ideas and they think they have a balanced scorecard because they're measuring non-financial measures. But what we've learned is a balanced scorecard is a lot more than simply measures. Yeah, those existing systems are still measuring the past. They're measuring both financial and non-financial, but they're measures of past performance. And we want the companies to be looking into the future. What are the drivers of future performance? Every manager knows that measurement motivates. If you put a spotlight on something, it's going to influence the way people act. And if you believe that, and you want your organization to move to the future, then you should measure the pathway to the future.
Here in the North Sea, Rockwater is working on its largest project. Amerada Hess, one of Rockwater's major customers and a leading British oil company, is developing a new source, the Scott Field.
This is the Scott platform. It's a central processing and utilities complex for the Scott Field. We're developing oil from the seabed, and by the middle of the decade it'll be producing something of the order of 10% of the UK's needs for oil. So it is a big field.
Over 800 men work and live in this complex of platform and ship, where much of Rockwater's work is done on the seabed, over 300 feet below the surface.
This is one of our semi-submersible construction vessels, the Semi-2. From here, we are conducting saturation diving to achieve tie-in of pipelines through the platform system.
Okay, Neil, both of those valves were shut, mate.
The first job we're going to be doing is the three...
Rockwater was formed as a result of merging together a number of companies that hadn't really been performing very well. They hadn't been performing, it was felt, because they lacked certain resources, both physical in terms of ships, the ships that we provide our services from, as well as some human resources. By bringing together the various companies that we did, we thought we addressed most of those strategic shortcomings.
Management of this new company had a mission: to make Rockwater the market leader in undersea construction. The strategy for doing this was to build a new kind of long-term, value-added relationship with customers through extraordinary service.
Our hardware isn't particularly unique. You know, the categories of personnel we employ were much of a muchness. What we particularly want to differentiate ourselves by doing is adding value to our customer service.
It's incredible, isn't it? And then that grey-lock clamp goes over the top, and this gives you the seal between the two. Very expensive.
The problem was that in the past, Rockwater's customer relationships had been built mostly around cost rather than service. Rockwater's management tried to communicate this change in strategy to its workforce.
I was visiting a project team, and the project manager said, listen, I understand the mission. I buy into the mission. But it doesn't provide enough direction. I don't know what it really means to me. I can understand it as kind of grand terminology, but I don't know what it means to me. That frustration that sense of lack of direction was permeating almost everything we did.
Norm Chambers brought in Dave Norton to help develop a greater sense of direction at Rockwater. They accomplished their goal using the balanced scorecard.
When we first started, the whole objective was to try and find a better way to communicate the mission and the vision that you were trying to put into your organization.
You know, I had this great void of understanding between mission and, you know, the reality that our project teams felt. And how to bridge that, you know, how do we make the mission real? Mm-hmm. How do we make the mission real? And Balanced Scorecard provided us with a vehicle, provided us with an agenda for discussion, provided us with the ability to bridge that gap.
In developing its Balanced Scorecard, Rockwater worked first on the financial perspective.
Ultimately, it's our shareholders' view that's important, so we went and spoke to them. Their views have been updated and reflected in the measurement system.
Based on this input, Rockwater set objectives and measures that included cash flow, project profitability, and return on capital employed. Next, Rockwater focused on the critical customer perspective.
If you don't have some kind of a scorecard that has a customer-supplier relationship in it, it can't work.
No, that's right. Both internally and externally. And that's why it was so important for us to go out to our customers while we're building a scorecard, and for our employees to hear what our customers have to say at that stage.
And generally the attitude towards safety.
The attitude towards safety is being
for all
good.
the personnel.
Absolutely.
Going out to our customers gave us some valuable insights onto what they would like to see out of an ideal contractor, which didn't actually agree with our view at times of what we thought they'd like to see. So it was a good eye-opener to many of our people.
Based on this customer feedback, Rockwater developed measurements that would help them build long-term, value-added relationships with customers. Measurements included price competitiveness, market share, and customer satisfaction.
Two of our measures are very firmly aimed at receiving direct feedback from the client. We're getting a level of detailed feedback that we didn't previously receive.
Was achieving schedule as important as we had perceived it was?
I think there's two aspects of that. I think.
But in addition to getting this feedback, we're also trying to use these measures to stress to our people the importance we place on being customer-focused. So it's being used as a tool to try and change behaviour in the organisation.
By monitoring and reacting to our clients' needs on an ongoing basis, it's certainly the case that the chances of having a satisfied customer are increased. And that should lead to more work from a particular client. That's got to be the ultimate aim on this.
The relationship with Rockwater has been extremely good. I think Rockwater has similar values to Amerada Hess. We're both committed to excellence in what we do respectively.
With its financial and customer perspectives firmly established, Rockwater turned to the internal perspective. What must it do well internally to meet its financial and customer objectives?
Our internal business process measures, these are the ones that we developed with the assistance of all our internal managers and their employees. And these are the ones that we feel are the biggest motivation to our people. They're certainly the ones that all our employees can influence in one way or another. Again, they're very much focused on processes.
Measures included rework, project management, and frequency and cost of safety incidents. They also included one aimed squarely at building long-term relationships with customers.
We weren't spending the level of time with our customers that we should have in order to understand what their future work was going to be.
So we decided to pick a measure of, let's look at the number of hours our people spend discussing new work with the client. If we can get in there much earlier and talk to the client, possibly at the conceptual design stage, we can hopefully influence their thoughts towards our particular strengths, capabilities, or even hardware, which will again obviously help us at the tender stage, and ultimately may lead not even to them coming out to tender, but that we can actually negotiate a contract direct with them.
How we're going to
Finally, Rockwater developed objectives and measures for the learning and innovation perspective. It included measures for continuous improvement and new products. It also included measures for what Rockwater called an empowered workforce.
We very much in Rockwater wanted to focus this on our people, directly on our people. You know, were we motivating the right behaviour? Were we creating the right environment to enable them to improve? We have some measures in there which tend to give feedback really on how our people feel about the company, how much they want to contribute to the company.
Rockwater measured this feedback through a suggestion system and staff satisfaction surveys. These surveys, in fact, revealed a problem. Half of Rockwater's employees worked at sea. They felt their ideas and suggestions were being ignored by management which worked on land.
The drilling down of employee satisfaction down to staff suggestion scheme enabled us to flip that around. And management was mandated to respond to any staff suggestions within 7 days' time. Our offshore workforce then started to come forth with a whole host of very real and very good changes that could take place. Very small things which enabled us to save hundreds of thousands of pounds, which heretofore hadn't come to light.
As Rockwater began using the balanced scorecard, it discovered links between the different perspectives. One discovery began with a problem.
We had a heck of a time trying to get our employees to identify to one of our shareholder measures, which was return on capital employed. It simply was a measure that had very little value to them. However, there was a very clear sense among our project teams about accounts receivable. Now, where this all comes together is that we, through our measurement system, found there was a direct correlation between customer satisfaction and the length of time it took us to collect our accounts receivable. Those customers that ranked us in the top percentile paid us 15 days earlier than those customers that did not.
Rockwater project managers were able to clearly link their ability to influence return on capital employed to collecting accounts receivable. They now understood how the measures in all 4 balanced scorecard perspectives were linked together. The balanced scorecard is now helping Rockwater carry out its strategy of building long-term customer relationships. Since beginning the scorecard, the amount of business from value-added customers has increased.
Tim, okay, ready to come up. Okay, Brian, coming up.
The change is now apparent. There are things happening. There is changes in behavior. There is a focus on the value of the customer that certainly wasn't there in the previous organizations that we brought together to form Rockwater.
At Rockwater, we saw how the balanced scorecard led to strategic change in the way employees work with customers. At FMC, we again see a company fostering change. But here, we will concentrate on the process the company used to develop its own scorecard.
FMC is a collection of 27 quite diverse operating divisions. In the past 10 to 15 years, these divisions had all been held accountable to achieving consistent short-term financial performance. What the senior managers of FMC came to realize as they entered the decade of the 1990s was that managers had been trading off some long-term growth opportunities in order to deliver this predictable short-term financial performance. The balanced scorecard now provided them with an opportunity to make those trade-offs visible and to signal to the operating managers of those 27 divisions that it was important for them to keep thinking about and generating growth opportunities for the future, not just delivering on their financial performance targets.
Once corporate management decided to implement the balanced scorecard, it chose 6 divisions to be pilot sites. This proved to be an effective approach.
A significant part of the ownership that we were able to develop in the pilot systems for the balanced scorecard related to the fact that each individual manager felt like he had defined the system that he was implementing, as compared to I implemented a system which the corporation told me to implement in the way the corporation told me to do it. Indeed, we dramatically avoided instructions from the corporations about what to do.
The lithium division was a pilot site. As one of 2 major lithium producers in the world, it mines lithium ore to produce a variety of compounds for use in products such as pharmaceuticals and batteries. For division management, the balanced scorecard was an opportunity.
From our perspective at Lithium Division, the number of initiatives in the company were pretty much overpowering. When we started to look at the balanced scorecard, we felt that this would be potentially an excellent way for us to integrate and consolidate a lot of the measures to satisfy a number of the initiatives.
Though Schrader was enthusiastic about the balanced scorecard, he knew the implementation process would be demanding.
It is an immense drain on your time and on your person, given all the other responsibilities you have. I think you've got to develop a lot of momentum within your own organization, which I was able to do with my direct staff, and now that's starting to transcend the organization. But it takes a strong champion to come out with this and to keep the momentum on it.
Schrader picked his controller, Rose Andrews, to work with him in developing the scorecard. Andrews headed a small core implementation team that led a process composed of 4 steps. First, develop strategic objectives in each of the scorecard's 4 perspectives: financial, customer, internal, and innovation. Second, select measures that help assess progress toward the objectives. Third, set targets for each measure. And fourth, communicate the scorecard to the organization and manage around it.
The company's balanced scorecard process will usually start with a meeting of the senior executives of the business unit. At this meeting, the executives discuss whether they really do have a clear strategy.
We're validating.
This meeting assures that the organization does have a clarity as to what the strategy and the strategic objectives are. Frequently, this meeting is taken up with getting consensus on those objectives.
And Carlos,
You said that very well. We have producing locations in 3 continents, and that gives an advantage that none of our competitors have.
That's really a powerful asset for our lithium division that we should be able to build in very effectively into our strategy.
After an initial meeting of the senior executives, then subsequent meetings are held with middle managers and engaging them as to whether they agree with the measures that are being proposed.
During this second phase of the process, the FMC implementation team interviewed over 30 division managers to get their input.
we felt that it was important that these measures be identifiable by all of our different types of people, our marketing people, our manufacturing people, our technology or R&D effort, as well as the financial group. And those 30 or 40 individuals were interviewed in a team atmosphere in order to get their perspectives on what's important to the business.
The innovative aspect of the balanced scorecard is that the discussions that are taking place now at the middle management and at the operational levels are being driven by the strategic objectives at the top of the organization.
An important issue arose in these discussions about the kinds of measures to be used.
You know, what can we measure on across all of those varieties?
Do we want to measure activities or results?
We did struggle with trying to identify numbers that were not too fuzzy, but yet incorporated the spirit of the balanced scorecard, if you will, and not just dropping everything down to the financial impact.
As you get into this, you'll find that some measures are quite objective. They're at hand and provide a clear target, such as on-time delivery, or quality measures, such as number of defects or yield. Other measures are somewhat more difficult to get at and require some subjective estimates. These could be measures of employee morale. They could be measures of quality time spent with the customer. My feeling is that a balanced scorecard can allow for a balance between hard objective measures and some subjective measures if the organization feels that those are very important.
After considering all the feedback from middle management, the implementation team found itself with more measures than it could handle.
When we started to look at the number of measures that we create, obviously, like all other divisions probably, we came up with more measures than we could possibly track. So we went through a sorting process. A number of the measures were kind of honing in on the same thing. So we clustered the measures and kind of put them into groups to come down to what we thought was a reasonable number.
We ended up, I think, with a good balanced scorecard in that we have 4 measures in each of the 4 categories, and that sounds very well balanced. And being from the financial area, that feels good. At the same time, 16 measures is a lot of measures.
There were 4 really key measures. I mean, there were certainly the 16 we talked about in total, but there were 4 that we thought could really significantly improve our business. And those were the 4 that we really spent most of our time on.
The 4 measures included on-time delivery, cost versus best in class, developing a new source of raw lithium, and new product development. Once these measures were selected, the implementation team worked with division managers to set targets for each measure.
Targets give people something to shoot for. The measures themselves will create focus in that people will understand now, okay, well, what's important to the company. If it's on a wall, very visible to many individuals, people will understand that it is important enough to spend time to think about it and look at it. But people need to know where we're going. What do we hope to achieve by measuring this process?
These targets should be established based on what perhaps our best competitors are doing or even what our future customers will be demanding. They should be stretch targets. And the targets should be such that if we deliver and fulfill on those targets, then the financial performance of the organization will be at a dramatically higher level.
After targets were set, management communicated the scorecard to the entire organization using videos, bulletin boards, status meetings, and progress reports.
One of the things we need to do up front is communicate the purpose of the scorecard to all of our employees to make sure that they didn't believe that this was just another report, another piece of paper, another thing to stick in a file. We quickly then moved to demonstrating to people what this meant to their job, how on-time deliveries were affected by their performance, how they could influence the development pipeline, how they could submit ideas, how we could grow.
Once employees understood how they could influence results, progress became apparent. The need to improve became clear at all levels of the division. Because of the increased attention it has received, on-time delivery has improved nearly 40%.
So we'll ship it out and you can expect to receive it by next Wednesday.
New product development has also improved. Management now feels it is better able to identify and focus on those new product ideas which offer the greatest opportunity.
We have certainly seen a range of results versus the targets that we've set across the 16 measures we have. Some have gone down, some have gone up. But I think the one thing that's really important is the 4 measures that we've focused on in our balanced scorecard are measures where we're making improvement in all 4 of those. We've got the right measures, and then
the process of getting to a balanced scorecard takes several months, but we're not doing continuous process all through those months. And the process itself is valuable. Organizations that have gone through it find that it makes clear to everybody involved what the vision of the company is and how they're going to achieve it. So they view this entire process as a value-added process through the clarity it gives and the focus it gives to the entire organization.
When you buy into this, you've got to be willing to put the time and energy and commitment into it. But at the end of the day, I think the rewards and benefits you can reap from this are tremendous. I'm certainly still a believer, and I've been into this now for 18 months.
Because of the success of its pilot program, FMC has now implemented the balanced scorecard in all 27 operating divisions. Management throughout the company is developing a measurement system that will allow them to balance both short-term financial performance and long-term growth opportunities.
We've come a long way with the balanced scorecard in just a few years. We understand the concepts better, and I think the extension of the applicability of it has been quite significant. The implementation process has really turned out to be a key one.
I agree. Implementation is the opportunity. The scorecard creates an opportunity for an organization. It better describes their strategy, gives them a way to communicate it. But once they do that, they can't stop because it impacts the way they pay people, it impacts the way that they invest their money, it impacts the way they try to change the organization. So in effect, building a scorecard is like letting a genie out of the bottle. And once the genie's out, you can't put it back.
And that's a very positive aspect of the scorecard because this genie of change is exactly what companies need today. They need